Have you ever just looked at the world around you and wondered about the hidden rules that make it all work? Well, today we're going to be detectives. We're going to investigate a huge ecological mystery. And I promise you, the answer will completely change how you see the natural world. And here it is. This is the big question at the heart of our mystery. It seems so simple, right? But the answer uncovers this universal law of energy that shapes pretty much all life on Earth. So why is the world absolutely crawling with plants and insects, but predators are actually kind of rare? Let's dig in. All right, to solve any good mystery, you first need to know who the main players are. And in an ecosystem, every single organism has a job to do in the grand flow of energy. So let's meet our cast of characters. First up, we've got the foundation of everything, the producers. We're talking about plants, algae, basically anything that can soak up the sun's raw energy and, through the magic of photosynthesis, turn it into food. They are literally the power plants for the entire system. Next, you've got the consumers. Now, if producers are the chefs cooking up all the energy, then the consumers are all of us, the diners. They can't make their own food, so they get all their energy by eating other living things. We're talking about everyone from a tiny ant all the way up to a giant grizzly bear. But consumer is a pretty big category. It's really more of a ladder, a hierarchy. On that first step, you've got your primary consumers, the herbivores, who just munch on plants. Then, secondary consumers come along and eat them. Then tertiary consumers eat the secondary ones, and it keeps going, all the way up to that top predator at the very, very peak. And finally, let's talk about the unsung heroes of the ecosystem, the cleanup crew. These guys, the decomposers and scavengers, are so important. They take care of everything that dies, from a fallen leaf to a top predator. And they break it all down, sending those crucial nutrients right back into the soil for the producers to use all over again. They're the planet's ultimate recycling program. Okay, so we've met the cast. Now, how do they all connect? It's not just a big chaotic free-for-all out there. There are actually really clear pathways that show us exactly who eats who. So the simplest way to picture this is a food chain. It's just a straight line showing how energy moves. A plant is eaten by a grasshopper, which is then eaten by a frog, which gets snatched up by a hawk. See? The energy flows in just one direction, from the thing being eaten to the thing that's eating. But let's be real, nature is almost never that simple, right? In reality, most ecosystems look way less like a simple chain and a whole lot more like a messy food web. That hawk doesn't just eat frogs, it might also eat snakes or mice, and that frog doesn't just eat grasshoppers. A food web shows all of these tangled, interconnected paths. It's way more realistic, and you know what? It's also a lot more stable. And this is where you see the food web's greatest strength, but also its greatest weakness. If you pull on just one of those threads, the whole thing can start to come apart. Taking out just one key species can set off a domino effect, causing some animal populations to starve while others explode. It's an incredibly delicate balancing act. So now that we get the connections, let's zoom out a bit and look at the whole structure of the ecosystem. To do this, ecologists use this really cool tool called an ecological pyramid. It lets us see the whole system at a glance. Now, there are three main ways you can build this pyramid. First, you can do it by sheer numbers, just counting every individual. But this can get weird. For example, you might have one single tree supporting thousands and thousands of insects, so the pyramid would actually be upside down. A better way is the pyramid of biomass, which basically weighs all the living stuff at each level. But for our mystery, the most important one, the one that tells the real story, is the pyramid of energy. It shows the energy flowing through each level, and here's the key. It always has that classic pyramid shape. This is what gets us to the truth. The pyramid of energy cuts through all the distracting details, like how big something is or how many there are. It focuses on the one thing that truly limits the entire system, the available energy. This shape, this is our final clue. Okay, we've met the players, we've mapped out their connections, we've seen the shape of the system, we have all the pieces of the puzzle right in front of us. Let's finally solve this thing. The answer to our big question, why so many insects and so few hawks, it all comes down to this one simple number, 10%. So what on earth does that mean? This is it. The 10% rule. It's a fundamental law of ecology, and it says that whenever energy moves from one level to the next, about 90% of it is lost along the way. Only a tiny 10% actually gets stored and passed on. So when that frog eats a grasshopper, it's only getting about 10% of the energy the grasshopper got from its lunch. So where does that huge 90% chunk of energy go? It doesn't just disappear. It gets used for all the business of, well, being alive. A ton of it is burned off as body heat, it's used for moving around, and frankly, a lot of an organism just isn't edible or can't be digested. You can think of it like a 90% energy tax at every single step up the food chain. And this is what brings us all the way back to our hawks and insects. A forest can support millions of insects because they're way down at the bottom, getting energy from a massive base of plants. But by the time that energy has been taxed at 90%, then taxed at 90% again, there's just not much left at the top to support a big population of predators like hawks. The energy has basically run out. So there you have it. The mystery is solved. It has nothing to do with size or strength. It's all about the shocking inefficiency of energy transfer. And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. Now that you know there's a 90% energy tax at every step, how does that change the way you look at the food on your own dinner plate?